Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and well, we have a special guest with us today. We have Dr. Chuck Chrismier with us. He's an attorney, he's an author, he's a pastor, and he is president of Save America Ministries, and he's authored a book called King of the Mountain. So I'm anxious to talk to him about that, and you can probably check that out at the bookstores or online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble as well. And Dr. Chrismier, nice to have you with us today.
Well, Terry, it's my pleasure.
Well, tell us about Save America. What is this?
Well, Save America Ministries is dedicated to rebuild the foundations of faith and freedom as a voice to the church, declaring vision for the nation here in America's greatest crisis hour, the near edge of the second coming of Jesus Christ. I practiced law for 20 years in Southern California, and back in 1992, I sensed that God had spoken to my heart saying, son, you've been pleading the cause of men long enough. I want you to plead my cause in the land. And so I actually began the process of winding down my law practice and relocating to the birthplace of America, Richmond, Virginia, where we launched a national radio program called Viewpoint, and we formed Save America Ministries there in California in 1992, and the rest is history. And this is my seventh book, King of the Mountain, and quite frankly, it almost blows my mind, Harry, that I've actually written this book because the simplicity of it, framed around a childhood game that most men have played when they were boys,
right.
Anywhere in the world, actually.
Right.
We called it either King of the Mountain or King of the Hill. And it was about a year and a half ago when all of a sudden it just came to me, this is the concept or the motif under which we can best understand 6,000 years of human history and the amazing development and fulfillment of biblical prophecy that's happening right before our eyes.
Well, there's so much going on that certainly points towards the signs of the times that are evident, and I want to get into that a little bit. But before we do, what of all the things going on in America, and there's a lot going on, I think we're all sitting back somewhat in shock and awe as to seeing this country unwind the way that it is. Of all the things that are seemingly falling apart in our country, which one concerns you the most?
Well, the thing that concerns me the most is the growing rabid antipathy toward God, toward the Christian faith, and toward the Jews. They go hand in hand. The other things that are happening are corollaries to those things, whether it has to do with Obamacare, whether it has to do with what's going on with Egypt, the Arab Spring, and all of that. They're really corollaries to that. And if we don't get the heart of the nation right, everything else is just a waste of time.
Well, we all like to blame the president, and I get that, what he's doing to our country. But on the other hand, we elected him. And we elected him twice, so that says something about the heart and the soul of inner America that has got to be alarming. Well,
there was a commentator in Europe who said the thing that's most embarrassing about the election of Barack Obama is that the people elected him. It's not what he was doing; it's that the people elected him twice. But there's this innate desire for hope and change, as we say, or as he said. And while there was no substance behind it, it spoke to a yearning in the mind and heart of people. As we have abandoned God, we've abandoned the concept of the fear of the Lord in the land that used to be a given. There has been an emptiness in the nation's heart. And so nature abhors a vacuum, and it's going to be filled. That vacuum is going to be filled with something, and that's where Barack Obama came in.
Well, what's so interesting about this is if there's a good side to him being reelected, and I say this cautiously, it has produced a hunger for, and I know perhaps in your show, Chuck, you hear it, and I hear it a lot with our radio and television talk shows, and that is this. What is truth, and who can I trust?
Exactly.
And if the nonsense is producing those two questions, then it's the church's golden hour to deliver the answer.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the bottom line is trust. It was about 5-6 years ago, as I was traveling across the country, I came across an issue of USA Today.
Mm-hmm.
And right there on the front page in, about 4-inch high letters across the front in green were the words trust, was the word trust.
Mm-hmm.
The whole feature there of that particular issue was the total fragmentation and breakdown of the very concept of trust. Americans can't trust anything or anybody. Our institutions are untrustworthy. And now we're called to hope and change and just trust me. And it doesn't work that way. What we've done is abandoned our trust in God, the God who made and preserved us a nation, and therefore all other aspects of trust have failed like a set of dominoes.
Right.
And the only way to restore trust in our institutions, trust in even in our churches, is that we restore the fear of the Lord in the land, and we restore our trust, an absolute trust in God.
All right.
And until that time, we're going to be involved in this massive battle for King of the Mountain that unfolds the entire panoply of the end-time scenario, both geopolitically and prophetically.
All right, you say so much in that statement there. Let me unpack it just a little bit. And that is that, and I say this with the highest respect in all areas, but it appears what has happened to America here is we elected a person who calls himself a Christian, but now we find out he clearly is a Muslim. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to figure out how to unwind this. In the meantime, now, Chuck, you see television and radio, you're on radio, and you realize we got mega churches, we got mega venues full of people going to seminars and everything. And so the church community in America seems to be alive and well, but it's not transforming culture.
Well, it's only alive and well in terms of numbers. It's not very alive and well in terms of its absolute commitment to Jesus Christ. And we understand that. For instance, if you look at the statistics related to young people, 30 years of age and younger, mm-hmm. those who purport to be Christians, only 20% of that group claims to believe that Jesus Christ is the only way, the only truth, and the only life.
Wow.
In other words, they believe in syncretism. They believe there are many ways to heaven, and therefore they obviously do not have the most fundamental aspect of the faith, the fear of the Lord, and the belief that Jesus is the only way, the only truth, and the only life.
All right, so
therefore, they're susceptible to every possible delusion, deception that is coming down the pike, mm-hmm. and they got that from their parents and from their youth leaders. Because of their parents professing to be Christians, 42% of them do not believe that Jesus Christ is the only way, the only truth, and the only life. Go figure. So when you say you look at the church in terms of numbers and mega churches, yes, but in terms of the actual commitment to even the most elemental aspects of the faith, it ain't there.
All right, so are you saying overall that we as the church have basically lost the fear of God? Now, there's two types: there's the respect, and then there's the fear of judgment. So we've lost the fear of God
in its totality.
Wow!
And in fact, that was my last book. My last book was called "The Secret of the Lord," and it was based upon Psalm 25:14. The secret of the Lord is with them that fear Him, and to them and them only will He show, reveal, manifest His covenant. And as I looked at that passage, I was reading through with my wife one day, and it was like the Holy Spirit shone a laser beam down on that verse. It was like it just leaped off the page. And the moment I looked at it, the Lord spoke to my heart, and He said, "Son, that's why your nation is collapsing."
Wow.
Because there is no fear of the Lord in the land. You have utterly and totally abandoned, and that's why now you have a massive growing fear of man.
A couple of things here, Chuck, before I run out of time. I'd like to introduce you when you get time to go online and Google Restore America. And introduce yourself to my good friend Dave Crow, who heads up that organization. I think the two of you guys have a lot in common.
Well, good.
So just Google Restore America, contact Dave and tell him I told you to say hi, because I think the two of you have a lot in common, can be working together. All right, we're heading towards this big battle, the King of the Mountain. I remember when I was a kid, my dad had a big sand pile dumped in the front yard, and I had two brothers, and we had a bunch of neighbor kids, and we'd all play King of the Mountain. I lost every time. I was a scrawny little guy that got thrown off the mountain. So, but
well, you don't sound like that scrawny little guy.
Well, the metaphor being what it is, where are we heading? What's going on here?
Well, the problem is that there has been an eternal battle that describes 6,000 years of human history, and now its culmination in the period of time called the Day of the Lord, the end times, and so on. And what we're seeing is history and prophecy becoming congruent, so that you can't distinguish one from the other. In other words, prophecy is being fulfilled so rapidly before our eyes that it's enough to make your head spin. But you have to be able to have a way to understand, to visualize what's happening. Otherwise, you lose, with all the little developments that are going on down here, you lose the bird's eye or the God's eye view of it. And so what's really happening here is that the nations now are bringing about, they're involved in their final efforts. Throughout history, there have been many efforts to rule the world. Now, the various nations and coalitions of nations, many of which had largely disappeared throughout history, are now resurrecting, such as Rome resurrecting. And all of these various geopolitical powers and religious powers are positioning themselves for their final effort to become king of the mountain or king of the hill. And that ultimate hill and that ultimate mountain on terra firma here on the earth is the Temple Mount.
There you go. All right, I don't want to have you give all your sugar away. Get the book. It's called King of the Mountain by Dr. Chuck Chrismier. And Chuck, let's stay in touch. I'd like to have you back. And again, get a hold of Dave Crow. I think you'll find that to be a great resource for you.
Very good. Love to talk with you. Thanks so much.
All right, have a great day, my friend.
Bye-bye.
All right, and we'll be right back.